operations, and beside the objectives that Unified Command sets, because ICS is a management by objective system, is it not? So on any given day, even during the initial response, we're going to have a set of objectives that we have to try to meet. They link up pretty well with a lot of these response priorities. However, don't confuse these response priorities with the objectives that are established by Unified Command. Those things are the things that Unified Command has determined are the most necessary things for us to accomplish in any given operational period, work period, to accomplish, to achieve our goals. But in the back of a good operations section chief's mind, you're going to have response priorities. Response priorities are those things that if we're constantly remembering them, and this is again it's very oil spill response centric. But if these things are running in the back of my mind constantly and being refreshed, and we're accomplishing these things, then I'm probably doing a pretty good job to meet the objectives that have been established by Unified Command. My first and always present response priority, of course, is safety. We don't want to do anything in operations that's going to injure any of our people, our responders, and certainly we don't want to injure the public, right? So safety is first and foremost in everything that we do. But then, from a response priority perspective, what's one of the first things I want to do is secure the source, right? Because, I've got say I've got 10 barrels of oil in the water, but I'm still leaking oil at 5 barrels a minute. Do I really want to go try to pick up the 10 barrels of oil that's in the water before I secure the source? It'd be foolish, wouldn't it? So the next priority is to make sure we eliminate the discharge. Common sense, right? Absolutely common sense. Now, who's responsible for securing the source? Is that really going to fall on my shoulders, especially in initial response? Who do you think, given our scenario, when the vessel, they had the collision and we're discharging cargo, who would be the first line of defense for source control? Even before our salvage folks, who's the first line of defense in source control? Crew, right? The master and the crew. They're going to conduct internal transfers and such to try to eliminate to the greatest extent practical any additional discharges of oil. Sometimes that's impractical because if in doing that we jeopardize the stability of the ship and thereby jeopardizing the safety of the crew, it may not be something that we can do. Which then we look really hard at our salvage guys to get them on scene as soon as possible to begin whatever operations we need to do to make sure that the source is secure. My Osro is not going to focus in on that. That's going to be our salvage guys and the vessel master that's going to take care of those things. Now, what the Osro can do is in line with the next line, and that's contain the spill, right? So, does it make sense for us to go where the oil's not yet at? Maybe it's a mile away, 2 miles away, and start putting out boom, or should we start booming off at the ship? It's common sense again, right? You want to do both because all of these response priorities, although they're listed in a sequential way, they're all equally important, and you want to try to accomplish all of these as quickly as you possibly can, given your resource constraints, right? And other environmental constraints, things that are outside of our control. But certainly you want to start at the boat where the majority of the oil is, especially early on if you have the luxury of responding very, very quickly, or where the bulk of the oil is. So you can get positive containment there, obviously, and then you move out from there. The next item is to protect sensitive areas. And it's broken, you broke it down. What is a sensitive area? Well, a lot of people, your mind automatically gravitates towards when you say sensitive, environmentally sensitive, like fin and feathers, things like that. But it really is much more than that. And this by no means is all-inclusive. That's why the etc. is there because, people is an obvious thing. We don't want to injure our people, and we certainly don't want to adversely affect the public or workers at a facility or any of those things because of the discharge. Wildlife is pretty obvious. We're at the end of the Mississippi Flyway. Well, not quite the end of the Mississippi Flyway, but on the Mississippi Flyway. So we get a lot of migratory waterfowl and things that pass through. And there's quite a few endangered species in the area that we need to be cognizant of to protect. Cultural, this would be historically significant things either from our history or even from the First Nations history, and how that plays out by and large is through the shoreline cleanup assessment teams. We identify and protect those areas, well, both through pre-planning, and we're going to look at some of those pre-planning tools, but also through the shoreline cleanup assessment teams. Now, 20 years ago, operations drove the bus when it came to oil spill cleanup, right? You know, they were the ones that, hey, here's the oil. This is where we're going to get it contained. This is how we're going to clean it up. This is when we think we're done cleaning up. Somebody come and say, yes, it's clean. Well, that's changed a little bit over the years. What we find now is it's an element out of planning it's a unified element. So you're going to have elements of both the federal government, the state government, the responsible party, the environmental unit that they have established. So it's their environmental engineers and things, like Polaris or a company like that. That'll be part of that team, as well as an organization called SHPO, which is the cultural part. They are the ones who identify those things that have historical value. So at a minimum, it's those folks that get together. They'll go out to a place. Well, when a spill happens like this, if you have the luxury to get them quickly, you can get them out on scene. And this is what we would strive to do: is pre-impact evaluation. So they scout an area before it's been impacted to see this is what it looks like, pristine, as it were. So that's the benchmark that we try to meet to get it back to that or better. But once the impacts happen, they'll go out and do the shoreline cleanup assessment, and they will end up developing a shoreline treatment recommendation, which is that thing that operations used to do. Okay, so this, with the caveat that, okay, so now we have this list of items that are sensitive in nature. Okay, we've got a bird nesting here. Oh, there's turtle eggs. Oh, there's historical significant artifacts. Now, because of those things, we're not going to get in that area. Or because of those things, we will get in the area, but we're going to clean it with toothbrushes and tweezers instead of skimmers and bulldozers. And then this is how we need to get it back to. So operations then consumes that information, passes that information along to the folks in the field, who are also being monitored by the SCAP teams as well, to get that area that's been impacted back to its pre-impacted state. So that's how that cultural piece is filled with the things that need to be identified, and how we get them back to pristine or to a post-impact situation. Next type of sensitive area is industrial. This is obvious. You guys have probably been impacted adversely by someone having an oil spill where your ship was laid up, it couldn't conduct cargo operations, it couldn't transit out to the next port of call. What does that mean to a responsible party? Demurrage, right? I mean, we're talking about potential claims against the company and things. It could be very, very expensive. So we want to be very sensitive to that and get those areas protected to the best we can, so they don't get impacted, so that when things do get back to a state where we can start moving vessels around, they're some of the first to get out without us having to do any additional cleaning things. So it serves a couple of different purposes. Our protection strategies is protects us against lawsuits, protects our neighbors and our other industrial partners, so they can get back into business quickly, and also protects us from having to spend additional monies to clean things that we wouldn't have had to clean had we protected them appropriately. So that's pretty important for me to focus in on as your operations sector chief, is protect anything and everything that I can. What's our major constraint? What's the biggest constraint for protection, containment protection, and even for recovery? Resources, right? Resources and other, the external factors that are being exerted. So it could be resources, weather, we run out of daylight, all of those things are factors, right? And then finally, we want to focus in on recovery and properly disposing of the spilled oil, and that's a no-brainer, right? I mean, these are the things we want to do. We want to do all these things in concert together, and all of them are just as important as the others, and need to happen yesterday. Is generally how it gets communicated back to you, right, Chaz? So we need to get it done as soon as we possibly can, based on the resources that we have Any questions about that slide? Any comments? Anything else you think might need to be added?